Call the December 16, 2014 Borough Mechanicsburg Council meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Here.
Here. Councilman McDermott.
Present.
Miller.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Stoner.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Ritter.
Here.
Solicitor Point.
Here.
Engineer Legowski.
Here.
Chief Spock.
Here.
Chief Secret.
Here.
Chair Jones.
Here. Do we have any guests? Seeing none. Any citizen comments or requests? Seeing none. Are there any additions to the agenda? We have a motion for approval of the agenda as written. Motion to approve. Motion's been made.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Correspondence?
No correspondence, sir.
We'll need a motion for the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of council on December the 2nd, 2014.
Make that motion.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Manager report?
One thing of important note, two borough employees received certifications and accreditations this past 2 weeks. Vanessa Moore received her operator's license from DEP. She is now a DEP licensed operator. And Toby Speck, who works for the highway department, received his playground facilities and inspection certificate. So now we have somebody that can inspect our playgrounds as well as another DEP operator at the sewer plant. So congratulations to them.
Thank you. Mayor?
Good evening, thank you. The prize tonight is the 2015 desktop calendar, Outhouses of Mechanicsburg. There's quite a few pictures here. I'm not sure which ones are being used, but I'm sure that could be considered. The 28th. Community tree lighting at the square, music, singing, refreshments, balloon twisting, live music, and Santa. Very, very successful. The third, Union Church was open to the museum's volunteer recognition music program and lunch. December 5th, the 73rd anniversary remembrance ceremony honoring Pennsylvania's survivors and families of the attack on Pearl Harbor, held by NAVSUP at the east wing of the Rotunda, Pennsylvania State Capitol. The 7th Union Church was open for the 20th annual Holly Trail Tour, sponsored by Friends of the Joseph Simpson Public Library. The 8th Crime Watch guest was Debbie Anderson, ARD coordinator from the Office of the District Attorney. Being stopped while driving under the influence can be very expensive. 13th, officiated wedding at Linwood Estates, Carlisle. 16th, the Mechanicsburg Chamber of Commerce Christmas party was held at Greenwald Accounting. This trivia question was submitted by Ron Adams. How many miles of underground sewer line service in the borough of Mechanicsburg? It ties right into the outhouses. Oh,
Better not tie in.
better not tie it. Could tie it. Ron's answer was approximately 25 to 30 miles. Thank you, Ron, for the question. And just as a courtesy for the question, I'm going to give you the outhouse. Head report.
Thank you. Chief?
No report, sir.
Solicitor?
Just for edification, the ordinances that council take action on to properly advertise for appropriate action.
Very good, thank you. Engineer?
The Memorial Park project's making some slow progress given the weather conditions, but we are moving forward. And I'm going to be asking council for some time early in next year to discuss. We have to do an annual MS4 presentation at a borough council meeting, so whenever it seems like the agenda would be appropriate to do so, January, February, makes sense to do it. We'll try to get that fit in.
All right. Thank you. Fire Chief?
3 quick items, Mr. President. December 8th, completed the aerial and monitor testings for the department with no major problems. December the 11th, held a fire officers meeting. And on December 13th, citizens had their breakfast with Santa. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda items?
Consideration of possible action on Sandra Huffman, 207 West Main Street, door signage and lighting pending the appropriate permits.
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Discussion and possible action to authorize HRG to prepare and advertise 2 requests for professional services for sewer studies at the collection system.
Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make that.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Discussion and possible action on Resolution 21, 2014, requesting work to be performed by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation.
Need a motion?
I make that motion.
Sorry,
I make that motion.
Second.
seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Discussion and possible action on Resolution 22, 2014, appointing Hamilton and Musser to audit the 2014 borough funds.
We'll need a motion, please.
So moved.
The motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Discussion?
Yes. How long has Hamilton and Mercer been our auditors?
They've done it every year, I think.
Yeah.
So she's been here 12 or 13 years, so a long time.
Long time.
Okay, the motion's been made. Discussion? Any other discussion?
Yeah, I thought last year after we were there, we were going to discuss about possible bringing somebody else in to do them.
Well, to do that now would be very difficult because we have to
Yeah,
have
we
it
don't
done in the
have time.
next 5 weeks. But if council wants to look at doing another vendor, we're not tied to Hamilton and Musser in any way by any contractual obligation to do it in 15. So if you would like to have somebody do the books for the following year, we can get some proposals together for you this year, and then we can move in a different direction if that's what you'd like to see.
I'd like to see that.
I think in a couple areas we should be doing.
Sure. Absolutely.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Discussion and possible action on Resolution 23, 2014, in honor of Ron Santos' service to the Environmental Advisory Council.
Motion made,
Second.
seconded. Discussion?
Ron, I think, was the charter member of the EAC.
I believe he was one of the beginning, really.
His perseverance and enthusiasm for the jobs served the borough well.
Excellent. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Discussion and possible action on Resolution 24, 2014, in memory of Clarence Dick Ritter.
I'd like to make that motion.
Motion's been made. Seconded. Any discussion? Dick was a long-time council member for a number of years, and I think he did a good job. So. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Consideration and possible action to accept the resignation of Police Administrative Aide Brandon Clark effective immediately.
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion?
I have a question for the chief in regards to this matter. In your email, you stated that the chief operation of this position was processing traffic citations and something with the e-filing, moving it to.
Yes, we have, well, yes, we have the equipment and software for e-filing. I hope to get that installed. Our installer will be here in January, sometime in January, get that installed. We should be able to put that online. Hopefully by no later in February, we should be effective. Applied to Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Court and received approval to move to an e-filing citation system. So that will handle not only the front end, but the back end. Will handle dispositions plus immediate entry. Will automatically file with the AOPC system and file with our records management system. So there'll be no secondary manual entry required.
So there'll be no need for another administrative aid.
And you will not need to rehire for this?
No.
Correct. This position will unless something unforeseen happens, this position will be terminated. We will not hire another person for this position.
I think the email pointed that out.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, it was just different from what we had heard at the Finance Committee meeting in November when I asked the chief about this.
But the email that was just sent out recently stated that he would not be replaced.
Right.
Well, council indicated that you wanted me to try and reassign, you weren't in favor of long-term positions, so I thought I was trying to go with council's wishes there. So,
Well, I'm
we're
glad-
dividing up, the
I'm glad
remaining
that that's-
factors will divide up among other duties. The CSOs will pick up some stuff, our secretary will pick up some stuff, I'll pick up some stuff. So,
I'm glad that's the message you took from the finance committee, because that's what I had intended to convey, was that we wanted to not include that position in this budget for this year.
Well, I was not, yes, I understood that, but I was not sure we could get online with the e-filing system. But we, from a budget standpoint, in terms of getting the equipment, we were able to do that this year. I have everything, the last equipment just came in last week, and so now we'll get it installed and be online with that. I cannot, technology, but I'm figuring by February we'll be running live with that. There'll be a transitional demo period for a period of time, but I imagine before February is over, we'll be up and running fully live with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Discussion and possible action on ordinance 1143, setting the per capita tax rate for 2015.
Need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion been made,
Second.
seconded, discussion.
Yes, how much does it raise at the current $5 rate?
It makes between $20,000 and $25,000 every year.
It makes, and what is the cut, I mean, how much do we net?
If you're it generates $25,000 in revenue, but there's a cost to the production now that would be eating out of those proceeds. So the justification from staff's perspective in asking for the increase in the per capita taxes is that now that the county really has no role in it and we have to create the data, get the data, and Barry Heckert has to print the checks, there's more actual loss of revenue out of that than there was originally. So at $5 or $20,000, you'd be losing $4,500, $5,000, $6,000 depending on that. So you're really not generating in it. So if you're going to keep it the same,
Right.
I wouldn't make the recommendation to just get rid of it because you're not generating enough income to justify the work. But by putting it at 10, we would make probably in the $30,000 to $35,000 threshold. That could we make up that in expenditures in the budget? Perhaps, but that's a decision for council. But if you're going to keep the per capita taxes, it's a losing proposition to keep it at $5. So we have to at least cover our costs in some capacity.
Well, in my perspective, I mean, we've discussed this previously, and I had indicated that, you know, I consider this probably the barest tax that the borough levies because it applies to all residents equally. But on the same token, in the past few weeks, there's been a lot of opportunities in the budget to take away some of the spending that was included in the 2015 budget. For example, that part-time position that we budgeted $10,400 for. So now I'm looking at this a little differently, and that we could really eliminate this tax.
The two things you'd have to consider with doing that is one, we could look at it this year and see how much and how exhaustive the process is. But two, instantaneously upon making the cut from per capita taxes, this is ultimately council's decision, you'd have the loss in income for the tax collector who's doing that. Now, that's 100% and totally the policy decision for council. But that's where generally your savings is going to come from an expense perspective, is that you're not paying the supplies and you're not paying for the person to collect the fee on the bills. So, you know, that's a decision that you guys can make, but it's kind of an unknown for us. We know it's going to be we know it's going to be more work. We know it's going to involve more coordination with Mr. Heckert. We know it's going to involve printing, sending them out, updating the database, and I'm 100% confident we can do it. But at $5, it's a losing proposition. It really is.
Previous to last year, it was $10. Is that correct?
No, it's always been $5. $5.
So the charge went to the county, and
Yeah.
the county's no longer floating.
Yeah, the county got $5.
That's the point.
Correct, yes.
It
Yes.
cost the taxpayers $10.
Correct.
$5 went to us, $5 went to the county. So
Correct.
last year, because the county backed out,
Yeah.
it was only $5. So really, it's the same it's now going to be the same as it always was. So the impact should be a little less than.
Your logic is 100% spot on, and that was our reasoning, is that if the county's dropping the ball and not doing it anymore, we've got to pick up the slack if we want to continue to create the revenue. So,
In all fairness, we probably should have, council last year probably should have said, let's keep it at 10 and.
you could have done it last year. But it's, and as Councilor Miller said, you know, it's one of those taxes that really, with a large rental population that we do, it's really one of the only ways that we actually generate any income back from a 35 to 40% rental market anymore. So, again, the justification.
Take some weight off the taxpayer, of the property owner, I meant to say.
All right, we have a motion.
Really not doing that, and the vote they're receiving will be taking, will actually be passing 2 tax increases on the residents. And we have an opportunity to eliminate that one of the taxes. Basically, it's a nuisance tax, but it's fair. But at the same time, why pass on an additional tax? Because we're not, the tax isn't generating the money because, you know, eating up the cost of. I think we have an opportunity to get rid of the tax for a change.
You asking me?
No, I'm just repeating kind of the same thing I'm just saying.
Well, and John, to your point, I think we may see that when we do this year, if it becomes something that it's not either too exhaustive or too laborious, or we're spending way more time on it, and we see that this is a complete and total loss in doing it. We don't have the amount of staffing that Cumberland County does, you know what I mean?
Correct.
So there's obviously going to be a learning curve for us to be able to do this. But you do have the flexibility with this, that at any time, council, about the political will being what it is, you can remove it. But again, where your savings are is really, and I think that, to speak on behalf of Barry, but I think if Mr. Hecker, this decision was to remove that, Mr. Hecker should probably be talked to, because it's going to be a pretty decrease in what he's generating for those bills, so.
And I understand the impact on Mr. Haggard, but there's also 9,000 of those, 8,000.
No argument. I only say that because I want that to be on the table, that I don't want council to think, okay, we cut this revenue source and then there's no impact. And there is an impact, because if not saying that he would, but if Mr. Hecker would say, okay, well, I just lost 8 to 10%, 15%, 20% of my income as a tax collector, I don't want to do this anymore, then now we've got a whole set of other problems that I have no doubt that we could fix, but we'd be collecting taxes, and that first office and the borough office would become a tax office. I mean, you always got to have a contingency plan, but you got to balance what you're doing and if it makes sense.
I think if we go along with it this year, and then we'll go through this year to see how things work out.
And I think we have to be honest with it. I think at the end of the year, we look at it, we see how it went, and then council can make that decision.
If it's not working out for us, then we get rid of it.
Exactly.
So we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
No.
That has to have a roll call.
Opposed?
Have to have a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah,
normal.
It's an ordinance.
I'll make it for it.
McDermott,
Now,
Miller,
No.
Stoner,
Yes.
Hellman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Watchell,
Yes.
Whitcomb.
Yes.
Discussion and possible action on ordinance 1144, setting the tax millage rate for 2015.
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded, discussion.
I guess the first question I would have is this in order until we pass the budget? Should we pass the budget first and then establish the tax rate?
Well, I don't know. If we establish a tax rate and we pass the budget, it's done. If we don't, if we pass the budget, then we have to go in and redo the ordinance,
Right?
right? That means we have to re-advertise.
Right.
Costs us more money.
You could theoretically vote down the tax increase and then amend the budget. So you could right now, if 4 people chose to vote down the tax ordinance, then you still have the opportunity to go into the budget, and you could say, well, now we want to cut, we're not putting the millage rate into that, we're not doing anything else like that, and vote to pass it.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Am I correct, this would put the tax rate at 3.33 mils total?
Correct. That includes the fire tax, that's correct.
That includes the fire tax.
At this time, I don't see the need for a property tax increase of this size. I think that this makes us less competitive with our neighbors at a time when they're keeping their property taxes even, and we are raising our property taxes. For example, this tax rate will put Mechanicsburg as the second highest tax rate in Cumberland County, and will be higher than the tax rate for Carlisle Borough in 2014, the municipal tax rate, that is. And I just can't see doing that at this time when borough residents aren't increasing their spending. They don't have more money to give us. You know, their incomes are not rising, and we should be looking more closely at our spending, cutting our spending, and trying to save money rather than increasing the burden on taxpayers.
I think the difficulty, and I don't disagree with 95% of what you said, Councilman Miller. I think the difficulty is, as Greg and I, or Ron, and you happen to have a lot of department heads here tonight, so when I face Ron, Greg, and Greg and I talk, you know, you're talking about in the next 3 to 5 years, $8 million in MS4. That's we don't have the cash for that. That's debt. That's just 100% debt that we have to free up. And I think where we had successes when we did the wastewater treatment plant upgrade was that was the largest bond issuance in Mechanicsburg's history. And we didn't get the pushback on it because we went through a very incremental step and plan of raising user rates in a certain way that it was definitely an impact on the resident, but we weren't another community that went from $65 to $100 in one meeting. It was a slow incremental process that got us where we needed to go. And I think that that's what we've kind of set out, is not only working with the developer on some stormwater issues with the S farm, but looking at it globally, how can we offset some of these costs by developers agreements, and how can we look at how can we maximize the debt that we have. And if we don't have, the budget that was put out initially didn't have a tax increase, but it was bare bones. And I think that we're going to get to a point where Greg is going to come to me, and I'm going to come to you and say, okay, we've got to borrow $5 million, and we have zero flexibility for debt. Now we've got to go through 150 line items, and we've got to cut $200,000 a year out of this budget, or we can slowly get this up to a point where we're comfortable and we're sustainable. And I think that's the balance that we are now. We are literally paying the piper for a long time of infrastructure needs that, I mean, we stood out, actually, I think everybody in here stood out the other day when we had a sinkhole on West Locust Street, that you're seeing that the infrastructure beneath you corroding away, and how do we have to come up with a long-term financial plan that makes sense. And unfortunately, today, I don't think there's $200,000 that we can cut out of the budget. There's just not. And I think it's going to take a couple years for us to, and I agree with you 100% on regulating spending. It's going to take some of that, and it's going to take having money and flexibility to do that.
Initially, the reason we discussed it, 0.25 tax increase, was for the infrastructure. We have no money to do anything on streets and roads and the underlying pipes.
That's the biggest problem, is that I was saying to a resident the other day, we're in the next 5 years, $8 million in before we even pave the top of your street. And that's a daunting forecast. That is the truth, is that we can fix all the stormwater pipes, we can fix the sanitary sewer pipes, and that doesn't pave roads either. And it's a tough spot. Right now, we're putting aside, or we have about $150,000 in cash to pave next year. Frame of reference, North Washington Street, $75,000. Hoover Street was $110,000. You know, we just spent $180,000 on those two sections of street, and we didn't do any infrastructure beneath them. And
that was what, 2 blocks? 3 blocks? 3 blocks? Yeah.
So it's tough. It really is tough. And I just think that it puts us on a track of trying to get us the flexibility for debt. And this is going to happen. It really is. And I said when I first started here in 2008, we had all of our money combined into one big pot. And if we would have taken that money out and we would have taken stock of what we were spending on and what we would have done, we would have seen that the sewer plant was generating a fair amount of revenue. We would have been setting that aside. We could have borrowed 20% of what we borrowed on that sewer plant. And I think that's what we're trying to not repeat the same mistakes of the past. Is that let's get up front, let's get the financial flexibility to be able to do these things. But to your point, that comes with, if you're going to raise taxes, you know, doesn't mean you just increase spending too. It means regulating your spending and spending money on the things that you need to spend money on.
And this budget does increase spending. It increases spending over last year.
It's true.
And I still think that there's well over $100,000, if not $150,000, that can be cut from this budget.
There's I'm not going to argue with it.
My question would be, why did you cut $150,000 last year? I think one of the things we have to be very, very careful of, and I want to be as conservative as anybody sitting on this council, maybe even more so. But we also have a duty to the residents of the borough to make sure that the town doesn't fall down around their homes.
Sure. Well,
We absolutely have a duty to do that. And I don't want to pick on my friend John, but John has voted against a lot of budgets over the years.
Yes.
For whatever reason, I mean, he's voted against budgets, and he has his reasons, and that's fine. But where would we be if every one of those budgets that he voted against increasing taxes, maybe increasing spending, where would we be today if that took place? And I guess the point I'm trying to make is we have to have a balance of spending and, in this particular case, a couple of minor tax increases in order to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I'm very aware of that. That's a serious issue for me.
I mean, I can't speak to all of what John McDermott has voted against in the
I
past.
appreciate that.
But in this particular budget, I see that we're missing opportunities to cut spending. And specifically in the police department.
And we have different
we're
philosophies on that.
spending money in capital reserves on a project in the park that I think could be better spent. The $40,000 for the pickleball courts, if we had planned to create a versatile court with the grant money that we received, we wouldn't need to spend $40,000 on pickleball courts, and we could apply that money to infrastructure needs.
And again, I can see where you want to come in looking like a hero to all the residents, or maybe the residents that you talked to, but you had the opportunity last year to do that and didn't do it.
No, that money's being spent this year. That money's budgeted for in this budget. That's an opportunity this year,
And
this budget.
I don't
Not
disagree with that.
last year.
If
This
we're going to cut police officers, that would be a way to save money. If we're going to do it with the pickle court, that would be a way to possibly save money. I don't disagree with that. I think our
All
residents
those things that you just mentioned and that I'm arguing for, the total dollar amount exceeds the tax increase.
How are you going to cut the budget in the police department? You don't want to lay people off?
No, we have an opportunity to not hire a 15th officer and not hire a 14th officer.
all we've given the go-ahead for is the 14th officer as far as.
That's what we ever heard. All we're offering is one officer.
The 15th officer's in the budget, but we have not
15th
approved.
officers in the budget.
But
We
have
haven't
not
approved it.
Yeah, we have not approved that hiring.
We have approved the hiring of one police officer. And he cannot hire another one until the other one is approved, if it's approved. He has to make that request.
And again, my challenge would be if a police officer is $70,000 with wages and benefits, that's still $130,000 you could have cut last year. Why didn't you do it last year?
Well, you know as well as I do that it's very difficult to lay off a police officer. And I'm not suggesting we lay any police officers off, but we have the opportunity right now where a position is vacated to not fill it, as well as not hire the.
You just said 2 positions.
Well, yes, the
14.
money is in the budget for 2 police officers. One to fill the vacated position that happened in December, and the other to hire an additional officer.
I don't disagree with that.
Well, with all due respect, 3 years ago, we had 16 full-time officers. We have 13 right now. So, say it's an additional officer, we're just trying to get back to where we used to be. And that was 16, 3 years ago.
Okay, but you have approved.
I understand that I have approval to hire one person. I understood that clearly after the budget
Right.
hearings to replace the officer who has resigned.
All right. All right, we need to make a roll call decision on this.
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Yep.
McDermott?
No.
Mallon?
No.
Stoner?
Yes.
Coleman?
Yes.
Whipper?
Yes.
Whitcomb?
Yes.
Winchell?
Yes.
Discussion and possible action on the 2015 borough budgets for all funds.
So moved.
Motion's been made. We need a second.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Two noes,
3.
3 noes?
Discussion and possible action to set the trick or treat date for 2015.
You forgot one.
I'm sorry. Discussion and possible action to advertise meeting schedule for 2015.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Discussion?
Do we get a copy of that?
Yes,
meetings?
there was a
Should be in your packet.
I missed it, okay. No problem. You did change those two Quebec board meetings. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Sorry, I got excited about the last one. There's a lot of emails flying around about this, believe it or not, already.
Oh, yeah?
Seriously, it is by far, you have any municipal manager in Cumberland County, the most phone calls they get or emails, it's when is trick or treat, what night are you doing it?
Already ahead of-
And it starts now. It starts before Christmas.
include the correct date in the annual
Yeah.
report, which will go to the printer.
Discussion and possible action to set the trick or treat date for 2015. Most municipalities are looking at October 29th because it falls on a Thursday, not a Friday or Saturday.
Ours in the paperwork says Saturday, right?
Yes, it would be, the 31st is Saturday.
That's actual Halloween.
Yeah, that's actually Halloween.
Yeah. Other communities are doing the 29th.
Is that where I'm active on those yet?
I believe Lou started the email chain of,
Probably tomorrow night.
yeah, probably tomorrow night.
And are you looking at the 29th also?
I make that motion, make it the 29th of October.
Second.
Motion to made the 29th of October, seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Consider appointment of the Borough Solicitor for 2015.
Move to appoint Coin and Coin.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Discussion?
Are we actually hiring the firm or only Miss Coin? I don't have any, I'm not sure what the information.
Lisa, are you the only ones, you're the only ones on the books right now, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's not Coin, it's,
To be Lisa
It would be
Coin of the
Lisa
law
Coin.
firm of Coin and Coin.
Yeah.
My father.
Lisa Coin up
yeah.
We got it.
All right, the motion's been made, seconded. Discussion, other than what we just had. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Consider appointment of the Borough Engineer for 2015.
Well, this might be a tough one,
I'll make that motion. Might be a tough one.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded. All in favor? Discussion?
It's gonna be Panoni and Associates or Greg Rogowski?
It's actually Panoni.
That one.
It's different.
It's different.
He gets assigned, their engineer gets assigned to us, whereby the law firm is one person is assigned to us.
But we do have a preference.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Consider appointment of Cumberland County Recorder of Deeds as real estate transfer tax collector for 2015.
make that motion.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Consider appointment of Penn Credit as a delinquent per capita collector for 2015.
So moved.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Consider appointment of Cumberland County and Barry Heckert as delinquent real estate tax collector for 2015.
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, on the reappointments, if somebody would like to make a motion to cover all of them at one time, they're basically the same people. So we have a motion to appoint all those on that list. We can handle this at that time.
I will make that motion.
Motion's been made to handle all the appointments, reappointments,
Second.
seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Authorization to close the books and pay all outstanding bills as of December 31st, 2014.
Make that motion.
Motion's been made, seconded, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Approval of capital general highway sewer and capital sewer fund expenditures for November 1st, 2014 through November 30th, 2014.
Make that motion.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have citizens' comments.
Council, Sean Forsyth, 53 East Main Street, Mechanicsburg. I have a comment mainly for Chief Spots. On Wednesday, the 10th, my girlfriend had been dropped off by her son on the north side of Main Street. She proceeded down the sidewalk and crossed through the crosswalk right across from Eccles Ice Cream. At about 1 o'clock this took place. She was nearly struck by a police cruiser by a matter of a couple of feet. This really bothers me considering the amount of crosswalk policing that was done between the police department and the mayor. She did not get an ID of the car.
What time?
About 1 o'clock,
In the afternoon?
yes.
Look into it.
Thank you.
December 10th.
Yeah, Wednesday the 10th, yes.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Any other business? Linda?
Wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Very good. Patrick?
Anybody has anybody in their mind who would want to manage the pool? There's a lot of stuff that needs to get done before, believe it or not, trick or treat in the pool happens now as well. We put the advertisement in the paper, the deadline is Friday, and as of right now, we don't really have anybody. So we have a couple of fallback plans in place in case somebody doesn't materialize. Those have some things to sugar out with them, but we've already worked everything to get the pool opened. Do you know anybody that's looking for a pretty labor-intensive, full-time, part-time job over the summer? Please let them know, because it's gonna be tough for us, and we're gonna have to be very creative if we can't find somebody, so.
Thank you. Chief?
No, sir.
Mayor?
See you at the wrench truck.
Maybe.
Can't look up.
I can't look up. I'm afraid I'll fall over backwards. Yeah, fall over. I'll climb on the rim and drop you down, right?
Today's the first day of Hanukkah and part of the holiday season, so we want to remember our Jewish friends and Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy New Year. And I will see you at the ranch crowd.
I just want to pass on my thanks to the staff and the volunteers that do so much work throughout the year on impossible jobs sometimes for their efforts and dedication. Thank you.
Just wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And hopefully I'll be out of this by January the 10th.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, and thank you for the reappointment.
I echo the solicitor's comments with happy holidays and continued confidence for showing. Thank you.
Steve?
Happy holidays, everyone, and stay safe.
And we have somebody in the audience who would like to make a statement. I think we made the national magazine here.
Yeah, if you missed the latest edition of Treatment Plant Operator.
I must have hit that page.
Yeah. Our biosolids naming contest actually made the latest edition. So Pat has a link, and Glenda, if anybody's interested in reading the article, just send you the link.
I will gladly send it to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
That it?
What's the centerfold?
What's going on?
Someone from Jackson has a
It's probably not short plan.
Thank you.
Areas of difference.